Okay, I'm gonna try to explain this chapter of the heart. I'm gonna go through the slideshows, and if something doesn't make sense, text me. Okay, so for the circulatory system, I'm gonna put C, system. We know that it includes blood, and then the way that blood is transported is blood vessels. And then the obvious one for the circulatory system is the heart. And then the function of the circulatory system is transportation. If I spelled that wrong, mind your business. And so then, what is in the circulatory system besides the heart? You also have lymphatics, but that's the lymphatic system. That was ugly, sorry. Okay, so for the lymphatic system, you have, we'll start with the easy ones. You have lymph vessels, then you have lymph nodes, and then you also have your spleen, tonsils, and your thymus gland. And I missed one, and no, I didn't. Okay, that's it for your lymphatic system, and you do not have to know the function. So that is just the first part. So now we're gonna remember that your heart is the size of your fist, and the apex is the pointy end, and it points to the left. So your apex is the pointy end of your heart, and it points to the left, and that's what you're going to listen for your apical pulse. If I said that right. If I didn't, I don't care. So now we're going to move on to the heart. So you have 3 layers of the heart. And I'll put that up here. So you have your inner, ignore that, you have your outer, middle, and inner. Your outer is going to be your pericardium. Your middle, M, so your middle is going to be your myocardium. I remember that because M and M. M and M. And then your last one, your inner, is going to be your endocardium. And these don't both start with the E, but you have the N and N. So those are your 3 layers of the heart. And then remember that the only one that has 2 is your pericardium. And it branches out, and that branches out to your visceral and your parietal. And then we've gone over that, so that's kind of review, but if you need more in depth of that, let me know. And then in between these 2, there's serous fluid, and it's to prevent friction. So like if I'm rubbing my hands together, they're dry and ashy, and that's enough to start a fire. That serous fluid that's between my hands is gonna make sure that I'm not producing any friction. So those are your 3 layers. And we also should remember that for the heart is striated muscle, striated cardiac, and it is involuntary movement. And it is the only striated muscle that's involuntary. So there's that. And so now I think one of the last parts of this chapter is filling this out. So we're going to go through this step by step. So first over here, you have your body. This is where the blood starts. And then right here you have your superior vena cava and your inferior vena cava. Superior is above, inferior is below. Here you have your right atrium, your right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. So far, so easy. So I'm going to switch to my black marker. And so here, these two are your atriums, this is between, so this is your inter-atrium. Between this, interventricle. Ventricle, atrium, 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 ventricle, ventricle. And this right here is called your septum. Because it's separating the two parts of the heart, like this right here separates your nose, and this is also your septum. And so this valve is called your tricuspid. Tricuspid, something with Cupid, I don't know. Cupid is always right. So Cupid is going to be in between the two right valves. So after the blood flows through the right atrium, it comes to the tricuspid valve, to the right ventricle, and it's going to pass through this, and this is your pulmonary artery. It's your artery because it's taking blood away from the body. So if this is your pulmonary artery, this is your pulmonary semilunar valve. And so as that's traveling through your pulmonary arteries, it's going to reach your lungs. So these are your lungs. And since this is bringing blood to the body, this is a vein because it's carrying to the body, and this is your pulmonary vein. So that blood is going to come through your lungs, and it's going to go through the pulmonary vein and through your left atrium, and it's going to go through your mitral valve. After it comes to that mitral valve, it's going to flow through here, and this is your aorta. So if this is your aorta, this is your aortic semilunar valve. It's going to flow through there, and it's going to come back to the body, and it's going to repeat this process. One way I remember this is that this is all not very good oxygenated blood because it's traveled through your body. So blue means non-oxygenated because when you're non-oxygenated, you turn blue. So all this blood that's traveling through here is blue. And it's going to be blue all the way up until it gets to your lungs, because your lungs is going to take that and it's going to oxygenate it, because that's what your lungs do. It travels, it helps you get oxygen. And the oxygenated blood is going to flow all the way through into your aorta. To add on to that, your aorta is your highest blood pressure. So I'm going to write highest here. This is the richest blood, and since it's the richest blood, it's going to the body. And the most poor blood is coming back through the heart to get rich again. So since this is where that most poor blood starts pouring into the heart, this is your lowest pressure. And then this whole cycle, this whole thing happens in a span of 8 seconds. That's how long it takes for all that blood to travel through, go from being deoxygenated to oxygenated, 8 seconds. And that's everything about your heart. It's literally everything, except for I did forget, in your valves, you have the chordae tendons, whatever you want to call it, and those help keep your valves shut. So when that pressure, this blood is going to start flowing into your atrium, and it's going to build up all this pressure that releases your valves, and then when that blood releases into your right ventricle, that pressure is going to cause those chordae tendons to snap that valve back so that you don't get that backflow in your heart. So that's that whole diagram. And then we already talked about the 8 seconds. You have systolic over diastolic. Systolic is your heart constricting or pumping, whatever you want to call it. And this is your heart resting. Okay? So both of your atria, both of these relax together, and both of these will relax together. So it'll be working in a system like at the same time. All right. And then the sounds of your heart. So in this one, you're gonna hear a lub, and in this one, you're gonna hear a dub. So the sounds of your heart will go lub, dub, lub, dub, lub, dub. That is it for that very first chapter that we did. Of course, you'll want to go over what causes these valves to open and shut. Of course, we know that this valve, your tricuspid valve, opens because of all this blood that's pouring in. It's going to have somewhere to go. So that pressure from all that blood coming in causes that tricuspid valve to open and come into your right ventricle. When that blood pours into your right ventricle, your pulmonary semilunar valve will open so that it can keep flowing. And that's basically how it goes at the same time, but she has it a little bit more detailed, so you might want to know that. Let me get to the next chapter. This video is kind of long and I apologize. I'm doing my best. So the next chapter that we went over today was blood pressure. And so you want to know that it goes from arteries to capillaries to veins. So the blood flows from the arteries to the capillaries to the veins, and from the veins to the capillaries to the arteries. A equals C equals V. I apologize, that was bad. We already went over that it's the lowest in the vena cavas and the highest in the aorta. We already know that. So one thing I definitely wanted to go over was the blood volume, because I know that that could be confusing for a lot of people. So when your blood volume is up, sorry, I confused myself. When your blood volume is up, that means that you have a bunch of blood pulling through, going through. So whenever you have all that blood that's circulating and continuously going through your heart, naturally, your blood pressure is gonna be up. When you don't have a lot of blood volume, when you don't have a lot of blood that's pulling through here, your blood pressure is gonna be low because it has nothing to go through those veins, it has nothing to go through those arteries, so it's gonna be low. And then your blood viscosity, that's literally how thick your blood is. So if your blood is less thick, it's not very thick, it's gonna be low because it has nothing pushing it through. If your blood is more thick, it's gonna be, your blood pressure is gonna be higher because it's working to get that thick blood through your veins. And then another thing that I wanted to touch on, because it did confuse a lot of people, is if your heart rate is down, your blood pressure is going to be down. If your heart rate is up, your blood pressure is going to be up. She made this really confusing. So, well, I don't think that she made it confusing. I think that she explained it so much that we were all listening, and it got confusing the more we listened. When your heart rate is down, your blood pressure is down. That makes sense. But what we learned in fundamentals is that whenever your blood pressure is down, your heart rate is up. That is because your body is compensating for your blood pressure being down, so it's working the heart to try to get that up. And this is when everything comes to a standstill, that is not working, and so then your body does what it does with the kidneys. So we'll come back to this and it'll make more sense. Right now we're gonna go to the kidneys. So this is my kidney. It's ugly, don't pay attention to it, I don't care. When your heart rate is low and your blood pressure is low, and your kidneys are getting absolutely zero blood flow. This blood is not going through the kidneys. Your kidneys get sit on a super high alert, like, hello, I'm not getting what I need. So in return, that is when, let me find it, sorry. That is whenever these lights start going off in your kidney, I'm not getting what I need, it releases the renin. And that renin will activate AG1 to turn into AG2. And what that does is, say that these are your blood vessels. This blue or green marker is your blood vessel. This one, your blood vessel is huge. AG2 makes your blood vessel very, very small. So in this one, your blood would be literally like pouring out. Here it's shooting out. If you think about this like a shower head, the large shower head is it misting. And if any of you are very like when you take care of your hair, if you have a shower head that's only misting it, that water pressure sucks. But whenever you change it and it's like spouting out, it's like spouting and shooting out, it brings out the best result in your hair. So whenever this is spouting out, that means the blood is coming out harder, meaning your blood pressure in return will go up. And then it also releases aldosterone. And so whenever your kidney sends out this message, it'll do this, and it'll also release aldosterone. And that aldosterone brings back more water and fluid into your blood. And what do we know about water and fluid when it hits red blood cells? They expand, meaning you have more blood volume pushing through. And whenever we have more blood volume, our blood pressure gets higher. So the aldosterone is what causes your blood volume to go up, which causes your blood pressure to go up. So your heart rate being down and your blood pressure being down is what causes all of this, and then it's like a never-ending cycle, basically. I wouldn't say a never-ending cycle, that probably didn't make sense, so ignore that. But that's basically the gist of it. So there's that. Venous return is the blood coming back through the heart. Ways to help that is exercise. You have to have an adequate heart rate, and this is when our blood pressure, and that's when she started talking about exercising and things like that. And then of course you need to know your labeling for IV therapy veins. That is literally it. None of that makes sense, let me know. It is very hot in this room.